Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Good day, everybody.
Hey, Lana, is your volume on? I
What?
couldn't hear Lina.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
Me not.
Oh, we can talk smack about her.
Yeah.
And she can't say a thing.
She can't say anything.
That's a new concept.
That's what they say. If you can't say something good, don't say anything at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Oh yeah. I could feel the vibration of what was going on.
Yeah.
I was fighting them back, Laina. I told him you can't talk about Laina like that. You could have heard me. I was really laying into him.
Hey, I'm gonna go back and listen to this recording from the beginning.
You should. It's funny.
I'll have the truth and nothing but the truth recorded.
You'll only have
There you
assumptions.
go.
You'll only have assumptions. That's all you'll have.
Well,
And then you can just live in the past like we humans love to do.
oh,
You
it's so
know what they say about assuming something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
ASSUME.
yes, ask out of you and me. Oh my goodness. Well,
Thank you guys for the laughter.
yes, I am just so excited that really there's a sweet community building here, and it just I received a vision that this is going to expand in really sweet, beautiful ways, because there are so many people that are so ready for truth, and that's really what is missing in I'm going to say within our spiritual circles. Truth is missing only because it is talked about, but it is not being shown. And we need people who are walking the talk. It is so crucial to stand up to what is happening. And I was super excited when I was, sitting in my morning contemplation. What am I going to talk about today? I always trust that whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen perfectly. And of course it does. And when I opened up the Course in Miracles and I had asked for guidance for what shall we connect on today, I was taken to one small section, one small paragraph, maybe tiny. Yeah, it's a short paragraph from actually a class that a few of you were on last night. So you'll hear a repeat. But then we're going to look at four specific lessons or short lessons towards the end of the book, towards the end of the lessons, that are going to tie together why it's so important for us to understand the different levels of consciousness that humanity is on, because one of the most important things for anybody who is going to awaken is honesty. And honesty is absolutely the favorite thing that the ego loves to distort. Truth. It loves to distort truth, and then it tells us that we're being honest when we actually are not being honest. And it entering into a space where we can be honest with ourselves requires that we get really familiar with what's happening within us. We are vibrational beings. We have to learn how to feel integrity. It is something that must be felt for us to be able to move through what is coming, because the intensification of the controls are coming. Those who have been controlling the planet without us being aware that we were being controlled haven't been doing this for thousands of years, and all of a sudden they're going to say, oh, you know what, there's a couple million people who know that we're onto them, let's just stop. That's not going to happen. And it's only going to stop through our awareness of who we are. And you can only know who you are as God created you when you can feel that truth inside of you. It is not something you can intellectualize. You must feel it. You have to feel it to be it, because it is a feeling. It is a sensation that it is known. That's why you don't need words to describe what truth is. You feel it. You cannot adequately describe what God is, which is why for thousands of years people have been arguing about what God is. because everybody has different words to express a feeling, and a feeling that is not based in integrity, aligned with thoughts, with truths, with words that match vibrationally and integrity, gets distorted. So that is the essence of what I wanted to share today, is these levels, more clarity about these levels. And it is not because one is better than the other. There's no good or bad when you enter into truth. There is only contraction and expansion. There is only a feeling of contraction that feels tight and tense, and you feel like you can't be yourself. And a feeling of expansion, which feels better, feels free. It feels like you can do what you're here to do. And if any of you have studied the Gnostic Gospels, or looked at the teachings that were found in Nag Hammadi, they're also called the Gnostic Gospels. One of those particular books is the Gospel according to Thomas. This particular gospel was deliberately, like all of the Gnostic Gospels, were left out of the Bible. They were not part of what the original church, the Catholic Church that got created by Emperor Constantine back in 325 AD. When that church was being created, it was being created for a very deliberate reason, and it was for the purpose of controlling those who were very comfortable believing in Jesus's teachings. Those beginning or original Christians, if you want to call them that, the ones who followed the teachings of Christ, they were not Catholics, they were not Christians per se. They just trusted what Christ came to teach. And they understood that the resurrection has to be felt inside. It is something you have to know it for yourself. You can't defend it, because how can you explain to somebody who does not understand truth, the truth of who we are, eternal, non-physical beings having an experience on planet Earth, the planet of separation, just for the purpose of having the contrast between being oppressed and being expressed, between being dead inside and being alive, fully alive, which is the distinction between death and eternal life. So the Gospel of Thomas has one particular saying. I think there's like 85 in there, 80 something. And it's only the sayings of Jesus. That's all that Thomas wrote in his gospel. And the thing that Jesus said that has stuck with me ever since I read that, and it's one of the first things that I read on this journey 20 some odd years ago, 18 years ago. And Jesus said, if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will kill you. If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. It just goes to be simplified. If you don't bring forth what is within you, if you contract the truth and you live in fear and protection, it's going to kill you, because you're killing yourself. You're killing yourself slowly with the lie that your true self cannot be expressed. But if you bring forth what is within you, your true essence, and share it and extend it, it will save you. And as we are facing what's coming, and when I say what's coming, is because we are just beginning to step into the real oppression. I'm going to say the real oppression that is coming, only because we are still being lured into believing that what is going to eventually bind us is what's going to save us. So the deceptions are very much at play. And if you don't know the truth, you're easily deceived, because what is offered to us as candy is really poison, kind of like the poison apple that Snow White was lured, because it's beautiful, it's shiny, and we've been conditioned to believe, oh, apples are good for you. One a day keeps the doctor away. So what do? You take it and you eat it, and boom, out you go, just like Snow White did. But like Snow White, love will resurrect us. But why wait to be resurrected after you leave, after your physical life ends? Why not resurrect now while you're in physical form, by bringing forth what is within you? And the only way to bring forth what is within you, as the Course teaches, is to look at how you block it, how we have blocked the truth of who we are. And that is what I'm hoping today. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of information from the Course in Miracles for you to decide if you want to integrate any of it. And if you choose to integrate some of what the Course is teaching, well, then you will have that transformation that the Course promises to all true students of truth. And a prerequisite for the transformation is you have to feel truth. If you don't feel it as true, you will not let yourself receive it. And how is it that we resist truth? It's because we can't feel it, because our mind is conditioned with so many things that have us desensitize our ability to feel truth. We are lured by lies. So it is, I would say, the entire spiritual journey for me has been a journey of having the truth repeated over and over and over again, and resensitizing my body to feel it, so that my human and my divine self could come into alignment. Because the truth in the head does not change anything. It is when the truth descends into the heart and becomes active that it can then move us into the type of action that we are being called into. Because this world is not going to be transformed without a deliberate stand by those who believe that they know the truth, and walk by it, and operate from a level of knowingness that we are eternal. We are absolutely eternal. So let me read the first little passage. This is from inside of the Course in Miracles. This is in chapter 2. And inside of, or chapter 2, I'm sorry, I said chapter 2, chapter 11. Chapter 11 is about the distinction of the voice between God and the ego. Now, the distinction is throughout the entire course, throughout this entire book. But in this particular section, it just really delves into some things that I wanted to highlight today. So I'm going to read from, let's see, chapter 11. We are in section 8, called The Problem and the Answer. And I'm going to read one paragraph number 10, inside of that section 8. So in the real world, there is no sickness, for there is no separation and no division. Only loving thoughts are recognized, and because no one is without your help, the help of God goes with you everywhere. Let me show you on our chart that we have been looking at. I don't want to take my little, let me pull this over. I don't want to take my microphone off so you can hear me and won't talk about me behind my back, Jody. Okay, so to understand the real world, as we have seen in this chart, the higher consciousness is what is our reality. We have got to understand what God knows. We have got to experience the transformation from what the ego knows to what God knows. So we have to make a distinction. This is the world of the ego, pure ego here. And this is the knowingness of God. This ascends, this descends. This takes us down to hell. This takes us up to heaven. And we have an in-between stage where we do our awakening. This is where we are becoming self-aware of the ego conditioning. And as we begin to move from being completely run by our egoic conditioning, we begin to resensitize ourselves, to de-densify. Just made up that word. Maybe it's a real word, I don't know. We are letting go of density, and the density of the body drops when the density of the mind drops as well. And what makes the mind dense is lies, misperceptions, misinformation. All of that activates fear. So that makes us contract, that makes us hold back the truth of who we are. So we have to understand what the ego is, what creates the ego, and do the very diligent work, committed, courageous, diligent work of questioning all of our thoughts. Then we enter into the period that I'm going to call the spiritual phase. And the spiritual phase really begins while we are in the ego. As a matter of fact, most of our spirituality is egoically based in many, 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 many ways. And it takes a level of, I'm going to say, real honesty to let go of spirituality, because it's a consciousness, it's a thought system, and move into total, complete oneness with God, where there is no thought system. There is a knowingness that the Course tells us clearly. We are letting go of the ego thoughts, and we are going to create a space. It's probably, maybe, I'm going to say it takes us up into, for about right here, where we are going to move in a transition from letting go of our ego, beginning to accept the truth of God with, I'm going to say with a little bit of ego still. That's the fourth dimension. And then we're going to operate purely on truth. That's the fifth dimension. And the fifth dimension of consciousness, that's where your mind is no longer polluted with your own thoughts, with your own egoic thoughts taught to us by the outer world. And we're listening only to the conscious, to the knowingness of God. So here, the ego, this is truly what is known as the 3D world. And here we're going to be in a 4D space for a while. I'm going to say, if you're on this call, you are clearly leaving the 3D world and operating more and more consistently in the 4D world. I can assure you, there have been lots of people who have gone before us who have explained how to do this. I am a living example that you can be in the 4D world, operating there with a foot in the 5D consciousness. Now, we're not going to be operating, none of us who have physical bodies are in the 5D world, because the 5D world is a world of crystalline bodies. We still have carbon-based bodies. So you can't have a human flesh body in the 5D world, but your consciousness that accepts that is the reality of who we are, light bodies, you can have that. Your mind can be prepared for that, because it goes into the mind in awareness first, and then the body begins to transform as you renew your mind. So you guys are here in that space of clearly wanting the truth, and the truth does set us free, but only if we practice it. The truth that is held at the mental level, yes, it's lovely, but it does not change anything if you're not living it, walking it, and more importantly, knowing that it is so for everybody else, because that's where real love comes in. So in the real world, there is no sickness and there's no separation, no division. When we know that we are one, when we know that we are pure consciousness, we're pure energy, of course there's no sickness, there's no dense thoughts. Of course there's no division. We know that only love is real. Fear is a condition of separation, and it is a condition of having physical separate bodies. So fear operates here, love operates in that dimension, higher frequency. Back to why we need to become more sensitized. Fear makes us desensitized, because when you're afraid, you really don't feel. You don't. When you're in love, you are completely open, re-energized, re-sensitized. You can feel everything. And that is what allows a person who is loving to enter into a place where people are scared, and the scared people don't feel threatened, because love does not threaten, but fear does. I'm sure you guys probably remember, if not you, maybe a friend's house when you were a child, or maybe you watched it in a movie where kids are happy and having a good time, and then one angry person comes in, like in that movie with the Orphan Annie, you know, the wicked person came in, and then all of a sudden everybody gets scared, because you can feel, when you are in a state of joy, you can feel fear walking in. When you are in a state of fear, you really oftentimes miss those who are loving, because you're not sensitized. So that's the real world that we're headed to. Only loving thoughts are recognized, and because no one is without your help, the help of God goes with you everywhere. We have got to recognize who we are, because we When we begin to enter into this realm, let's say our consciousness elevates into the lighter realms, we are the ones who are operating in the world, but not of it. We are here. We're on planet Earth. We are in the planet of 3D. The only word that comes to mind, and I'm just going to say it, is fucked upness. This planet is just totally, it's been fucked up by a thought system that is not operating in alignment with love. It's operating strictly from lack, from greed, from fear, and from a need to control, because we think that we get our wholeness from another. Thank you, Jerry Maguire. You know, you complete me. Those who are attempting to control the world really believe that they get completed when we get depleted, and that we need to learn how to harness our own energy so that it's not sucked out of us. Then it goes on to say, as you become willing to accept this help from God, by asking for it, you will give it because you want it. Part of the truth of love is that you give it to receive it. When you understand that love is circular, this is why when you give forth what is within you, it saves you. To give it is to recharge it, and it returns. You send it out, recharge it, it returns. When we are all giving and receiving, we're creating a sense of infinity, of movement, that is what sustains a world that is happy, where there is no lack, because you're in a constant flow of sharing from an awareness of wholeness, that it all comes from God and it returns to God. If it comes from me as God and it goes to you, it's returning to you. You as God are flowing it to me, it's going to return to you, because it is the nature of love is to be in constant movement, giving and receiving. So as you become willing to accept this, of course, we will want to give it away. So nothing will be beyond your healing power, because nothing will be denied your simple request. Oh, so beautiful. What problems will not disappear in the presence of God's answer? Ask then to learn of the reality of your brother, because this is what you will perceive in him, and you will see your beauty reflected in his. We have got to understand that every single one of us is the same energy, the same presence of the Creator. Either we have descended and believe that we are separate because we believe the thoughts in our head, or we've done the work of cleaning up the misperceptions, and we have ascended our consciousness back to see everybody exactly as they are. And the only way to be able to see what's going on in this world is to really think of yourself as an actor. Every one of us actors in an amazing movie. Every one of us is playing a role. Nobody's going to go see a movie where it's only all good people and all they sit around for 2 hours is talking about, you're good, I'm good, it's all good, life is good, everything is good, everything is the same. We would say that not only that's not possible, but it's going to be boring for our 3D minds. So on this planet, because the infinite creator of all that is knows that we're energy, we're not going to go anywhere. We're having a temporary human experience. We get to play a role in density. We get to densify ourselves. We get to come in and act out the bad guy in one lifetime or another. We get to experience both sides of what would be called the polarities of energy. When energy is free flowing, it does one thing. When energy is condensed, it does another thing. You take energy and you condense it, you can create the atomic bomb. You take energy and you expand it, you have the sun that is life-giving. One destroys, one creates, one activates life. So in this planet, when we take on a physical vessel, we can descend into pretty dark experiences. As our chart says, I don't know if you can see this, you can go to the lowest evil, where what is life, you no longer live, L-I-V-E backwards, you no longer live from truth. You block truth and become evil. And that's all that is. And this is the lowest energy, the lowest frequency you can possibly be in, because it's a frequency of, I'm going to call it murder. It's where you believe that it is okay to take from another, to take the life from another. That's why you can't live, you go into evil. So if you don't want people to live in their wholeness, you take it from them as an act of being evil. So we get to play these roles. Lots of people, I know I have had my evil thoughts. I am certain, and I have had experiences in past lives through past life regressions that I did some pretty atrocious things. In this lifetime, I came in at a level that I know made it easy for me to shift into the courageous place of questioning my thoughts, because I could feel, when I had past life regressions, I could feel my evilness, and I was not, in the beginning it startled me, but then I realized that it is part of my infinite nature. And when I decided to have compassion for my evil ways in past lives, I began to see my evil ways in this lifetime. My need to control, to lie, to cheat, to do selfish things. I was able to see them and go, wow, yeah, we all have the ability to do that. And the journey was about having the courage to affirm that I'm not that. I am not evil. If I let life flow through me, then I cannot possibly be evil. If you turn the light on, you do not have a dark room, but the room was dark before you turned the light on. So we have to affirm the truth that we are the light, so the darkness goes away, not by beating it away, but by affirming the truth of who we are, that allows us to trust that we can live our lives from neutral. And in neutral, that means no judgment. That means I stop calling it good or bad. I begin to just acknowledge it as dark and light, as love or a call for love. This requires an incredible willingness where we are, this is not blind hope. This is the hopefulness that everybody else will come to the same truth, because we have the optimism through knowing the truth of who we are to walk the talk, to be in the world, but not of it. It requires an incredible amount of courage. That's why courage is what helps you cross the line from egoic pride, the I know it all this way, into the courage of, I don't know what anything is for. God, please teach me. And we begin to ask for help from the voice that knows, the voice inside of us. All of us have the same voice, because there's only one voice that speaks for God. And it is the truth that is inside each and every one of us. That's why we have to bring it forth to save us. We have to share it with our brothers and sisters. We have to extend it so that we can receive it. Let me read, well, before I go to the lessons, because we're going to touch on 4 lessons. Any thoughts, comments, questions, whatever you want to share right here, go ahead and unmute yourself, please. I know that was a lot of information.
Hey, it's Jody. I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay, so we're not a body. And bear with me. I'm going to just try and get through the thought of it, because I had it a little earlier.
Go for it.
So we're not a body, and there is dark. We are light. Well, we're light when we choose light, to turn a light on. So if the outside 3D BS is evil, can they, if we are living in 4D, can they affect us with chemtrails and the vaccine? I kind of don't watch a lot of news and stuff, but I do kind of look at, like, well, are they really trying to kill us with those vaccines, or are they, and can they, if we are truly not a body and we're free? Well, we don't die anyway, I guess, because we're eternal.
Well,
But
and that's the crux of the answer. We don't die because we're eternal. However, we are having a human experience. And in this human experience, our level of consciousness allows us to have that experience. So if there is fear of the chemtrails, then most likely, yes, the chemtrails are going to affect you. If you understand that the chemtrails is a consciousness, that is a choice of those who want to operate at that level, at that lower level of evilness and death and destruction, then inside of that fear, you're saying yes to the density. So we have to understand that we've got to get our consciousness, our mind cannot be looking at something that is happening and calling it real and out there, because then you're not operating the consciousness of at least 4D to understand that the power is in here. But when you're clear the power's in here, then we have to acknowledge that it's been projected into the world that we see. And that's what the Course in Miracles makes super, super clear. We have projected our disconnection from God out there. That's where evil can come in, because it's a block to what God does, which is love. So the first thing is the honesty. Where is your consciousness? If you drop into fear, yes, it's most likely going to affect you. If not, that's something else, because you have given permission to the external to having power over you.
Well, no, let me clarify. So all the vaccines, the millions of people that are getting vaccines, and they're happy about getting them. They're not in fear about it. They're happy about getting them. If the vaccines are being made by evil, I'm just using this as an example, does that mean that people won't die, or they still will?
So here's the thing. You just said something really important. When people are taking those vaccines and that makes them happy, we have to look at, are they happy because now they have something that has offset the fear that they had of death? Yeah. Because inside of that getting happy to offset a fear, you're still operating in the realm of the 3D world where love is here. Love exists no matter what, because love is what we are. But if fear is what drives you to find something that makes you happy and make you feel better, the minute the next thing hits that activates fear, well, guess what? That vaccine that made you happy, made you feel good, is not going to help you if your body now has returned into a place of fear. So it is an awareness of the constant state of consciousness that we're operating in. And most of humanity operates about 80%, everything is driven from fear. So from that fear, that 20% happiness that they got because they have a temporary sense of relief, is sufficient to change that moment, but not to sustain it, because the mind has to get really clear that fear is not part of the reality that God wants us to operate from. So that's why everything in the world, it goes back to what Einstein said. We're attempting to solve a problem with the same mind that created it, and the same mind that is in fear creates a vaccine to create the same problem, which is a disconnection from God, expecting a different result, like somehow it's going to connect you to God. In a way, it does connect you to God, because eventually you're going to die and be back in non-physicalness, and from that place you see, oh, it's all God. But the awakening process is to acknowledge our godness, our goodness here while we're in physical form. So there's going to be confusion up and down in frequency when you operate from looking for something external to save you. It always will be up and down. When you look for something internal to be your source of power, then you can go take that vaccine because you hear the guidance. Go ahead and take it. Maybe you're going to be the example with your consciousness purely aligned with God and no fear of death. You may become an example of one whose consciousness overrides the vaccine. So it's both. Consciousness runs everything. Does that help, Jody? And then I'll go to Vern.
Yeah, that helps. I was just wondering too, because I have just a little bit of fear because my daughter just got the vaccine, and then I hear that people are trying to kill off all these people. I don't really know where my truth lies with all this. I don't really have a lot of fear around death, or any, but
well, you do if you have concern for your daughter. So just check in with that. That's that little bit of fear that has power. I mean, it has power because every thought has power. So if you don't see her as the powerful creator that is playing the role of a young girl wanting to get the vaccine, she may be one who in her excitement and in her connection to source says, I'm going to take it because I know it's good for me. It's probably not going to affect her, but your fear is going to affect you.
I get it. I totally got that. Thank you.
Okay.
Got it.
Yes, Vern.
Yeah, this is an interesting area. I think there's a a good example, Jody, that this, I don't know if this will help you or not, but if you consider what's been happening, the states that have had the most openness, the most freedom expressed, seem to have, are the healthiest. In other words, it seems really interesting when you look at that. And they just announced yesterday that in Michigan, which is one of the most closed down states there are, as far as I can see, they've got 246 people that got both the first and the second vaccines and have now have COVID-19. Now, this is where the fear thing comes in. You can take all the vaccines you want, but if the fear is there, because remember, every thought has a biochemical signature. Every thought has a biochemical signature that impacts your entire body, especially your immune system.
True.
So if you're taking something into your body, no matter what it is, if your core belief is that you're taking it out of fear, or that's the mindset that you're doing it at, what you've just done is you might have just taken water into your system. Or, and I'll just say this, that your body now has a different biochemistry and it interface is different with the vaccine itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, it becomes really, I think this is absolutely critical. The one thing that I'm working on more than anything, as I possibly can, is move into, like Linus talking about, it functioning from a higher state, not better than, but a different state, a higher state, so that no matter what happens. So your immune system, if there's one thing that everybody should concentrate on right now, no matter what, chemtrails, anything, okay, it is your immune system. And the best way to do that is to work on your consciousness, because your dominant mindset basically creates the biochemistry that your body functions from every day.
Beautifully said.
Absolutely. This is
that
why
helps or not, but
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you.
totally helps. This is why yogis for thousands of years, people who are connected to consciousness, live way longer than the average person. And most of them don't even eat or hardly eat, because they live off of that they're sustained by higher consciousness, by the breath, the prana. They know how to be in alignment with source. And in the West, we make fun of those crazy yogi people, not eating, walking around with a diaper on, not eating, and just breathing. We've got to get really clear that each and every one of us is a walking, talking, living, breathing consciousness. That's what we are. We are a thought system creating a reality in dense form or in lighter form. That is it. We call it fear, we call it love, we call it closed, we call it open, but one is freedom, one is not. That's what we need to understand. Let me read these lessons. Thanks, Jody and Vern, for that. I want to go over 4 lessons. These are really short lessons. Lessons 311, 312, 313, and 314. They all tie together. 311 states, I judge all things I would have them as I would have them be. I judge all things as I would have them be. So everything we look at is looked at from our consciousness, and it will become what we want them to be. Judgment was made to be a weapon used against the truth. And remember that judgment, like think of our judicial system. That's why we have a judicial system, because we projected out our judgments. Our judgment is somebody has the ability to decide you're guilty or you're not. So when we're judging, we are deciding you're good, you're bad, you're right, you're wrong. And of course, then the punishment comes from that based on how we do it in this world. To judge immediately puts us in separation, because there's got to be the judge and the one judged. So judgment was made as a weapon against the truth. This is why we have to get to the courage to go to neutral and stop thinking that we know better. Stop thinking that we know what's right and wrong, and begin to operate from feeling contraction and expansion. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just, what do you want to experience while you are in physical form? And the mind has got to get out of judging it good or bad and recognizing that God has given us all of us, the ability to go down and experience density or to experience the light. There are just enough of us right now that have had enough with the density. We're tired of playing that game. We're tired of repeating elementary school, and we want to finally graduate to another experience. So judgment, it separates what it is being used against and sets it off as if it were a thing apart. And then it makes of it what you would have it be. It judges what it cannot understand because it cannot see totally and therefore judges falsely. What to your point, Jody, if you judge the vaccine, oh no, that's a bad thing, that's going to hurt my daughter. I'm not saying you said that, I'm just using the general example. Or any of us say, oh, I'm not going to take that vaccine, that's going to kill me. You are judging that thing, saying that thing has power to do something to you. In the judging that thing, we have set ourselves apart, as opposed to just accepting that is a consciousness that is of a lower frequency than I want to play with. I don't sit around thinking I'm not going to take a vaccine because it's going to hurt me, it's going to kill me. No, I'm not taking the vaccine because it's not the playground I want to play in, period. I'm not afraid of the freaking vaccine. If somebody forces me to take it, my consciousness will completely override it within my beingness. I have zero doubt about that. I have that certainty about it. So when you judge it, you give it power because you're saying it is separate from me. Once something is separate from us, we have absolutely zero in our mind. We believe we have no ability to protect ourselves from something that we think is harmful. When it is simply something that you decide it's not my preference to take it, and now it has no power because judgment, remember, judgment is strictly plus minus good, bad. That is all judgment is. When it is something you don't want, you don't want. How many of us walk around the grocery store and go to the produce section and, if there's a fruit that is not one that you prefer, you stand there going, oh, I hate that watermelon. I don't want that watermelon getting in my cart. I got to go around the watermelon aisle so that I don't have a watermelon jump on me. We don't do that. We go grab the strawberries. We walk right past the watermelon if you don't like it. And I'm not judging the watermelons as good or bad. I do eat them. I'm using them as an example. You just pass the watermelon and you go on to maybe the bananas. When you can walk past whatever it is that is not your preference without judgment, you have changed yourself from a 3D person that is conditioned into seeing things as good or bad, and you have elevated yourself into 4D, at least 4D consciousness. While you're thinking, you need the food to sustain you, and they're separate people, we're still operating maybe 4D, but still somewhat in 3D. So we have to be honest about that. So I judge all things as I would have them be. Get clear. We want to stop judgment because judgment was made as a weapon that we use against the truth. That's why we've all been conditioned to fear the judge's sentencing, because we believe the judge is the one that has power to decide, do you go free or do you get sentenced? So when we use it to decide that's good or that's bad, we give ourselves a false sense of 3D power. Oh, I'm the judge, I get to do that. That is actually a trick of the ego to disempower us, because the minute we're afraid of something, we have just sentenced ourselves. We've sentenced ourselves into suffering because now that thing has power over us.
Well, Laina, hold on one second. Then everything that's happening right now, the darkness or whatever, that's all divine perfection. Then there is no fucked upness.
There is it's divine perfection, fucked up only in our use of the divine perfection, because God does not intend for the Course is really clear. God created light, God created love. The divine perfection is that we can choose to block the light, we can choose to block love. So we can do that. But if you know that love is what you are, if you know that light is what you are, it's pretty fucked up to think that blocking it is supposed to be normal.
Oh, I see. Got it. Thank you.
So our mind has been conditioned to believe that blocking what we are is normal. That's what's happened, is the mind has been conditioned, but God doesn't judge us because God does not enter into judgment, because God is not going to use that weapon against the truth, that we have freedom to choose the density we want to play in. Yes, Vern, go ahead.
Yeah, this is again, a very tricky area because, that word judgment, some people they look at it and they say, well, then I can't make a decision. How am I supposed to make decisions? And that's where discernment is a whole different way of understanding the process. And for me, once I got clear that I've been given intelligence, I have a mind, I have the ability, I have my 5 senses, I can take in information. I have all that because I have to be able to exist on the physical plane. That's part of what we have, part of the tools we have in order to function. So to discern basically says that, yeah, all this stuff is going on out there. Okay. And if you don't discern it, if you don't understand it and can't see it without causing it to be good or bad, if you can just discern it, then you can move yourself into seeing things from the neutral position, which we're all trying to go towards. But we would be foolish to think that, well, I can't judge anything because, again, that word is very, very tricky. But to discern is part of our responsibility. That's part of being free. Free will. What is free will?
Yeah,
free will is about exactly. So it is like, and for me personally, that's where it has really come home. And that is that because I've made a lot of statements to people over the last couple of months, and they say, well, you're just judging me. And I said, please listen to what I'm saying. I am not judging you. I'm discerning what for myself, what my perceptions are. And I'm sharing that. It doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. What it does do is I have a requirement. That's why I've always had a problem with the yogis living in the caves. It's pretty easy to be spiritual living in a cave someplace without having to interact with the world. But Gautama Buddha proved that because he was in that state for many, many years. And he had to come back to where? To the middle path. And what is the middle path? That's the path of discernment. That is the neutral position. So we've got people that have gone way off to one end and the people going way off to the other end. That's the whole, and we're living within that. And because we co-create and we share the world together with each other, it is our responsibility to use our personal discernment. And I believe that the more that you're focused on the things we're talking about here, then what's going to happen is your perceptions around you will allow you to discern and give you a direction where you want to go.
Well, beautifully stated, because my goal in sharing this is to help you see that every single state of consciousness is a choice when you can see all of them. When you can't see them all, then you don't feel like you have a choice. If you go to an ice cream store and they only show you vanilla, you don't think you have a choice. They're giving you vanilla. But in the back, they're cooking all the other flavors, but you don't know about those other flavors unless they invite you back there to pick from them. This is an invitation for you to see all of the flavors that you can experience life from, kind of like Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. But most of us have been operating with one, which is fear. And now there's an opportunity to expand that consciousness, and you cannot discern if you don't have awareness of the options that are available to you. And that is when going to neutral is possible. Why would you be upset that people like different flavors of ice cream? There's no need to argue with that, but you just know what it is that you prefer. Why? Because everybody's here by choice on this planet. Everybody's having the experience that they wanted to have before we incarnate. This is something that is absolutely crucial that we understand, that this is a choice to be in the 3D world. Nobody is sent here because we're being punished. We came here because we know we are free and are choosing to have an experience of how dark can we go. How many of you, raise your hand, if during Halloween you have ever attended a haunted house? Yeah, by choice, we went in to be terrorized. We came to planet Earth as a haunted house. Just most of us have not walked out and seen that it is all make-believe. So to awaken is to realize, oh, this is all made up. It is all made up. And that empowerment is what sets us free and then allows us to help those who are terrorized and are saying, brother, give me a hand. I mean, how are you so happy and comfortable and not afraid of what's going on? That's when we become the teachers of God that the Course is preparing us to be, not by telling them they're doing something wrong, because that would be judgment, but by being an example of being in the world and not of it. But we forgive them when they don't know what they're doing, because they don't know they have more flavors. And then we get to be the teachers of God that are here to example another way. And this next lesson, 3:12, says, I see all things as I would have them be. So back to, we get to decide how things are based on how we look at them. So perception follows judgment. Having judged, we therefore see what we would look upon. If we want to look upon this world as horrible, it's going to hell in a handbasket, that's what we're going to see. And guess what? That's the frequency that we're operating at. Because we judged it, now we perceive it at that frequency. For sight can merely serve to offer us what we would have. It is impossible to overlook what we would see and fail to see what we have chosen to behold. So when somebody chooses the vaccine as their savior, it's because they have judged it good, and now they're perceiving it as the thing that will help them and save them. Because that is what perception does. It follows judgment. How surely, therefore, must the real world come to greet the holy sight of anyone who takes the Holy Spirit's purpose as his goal for seeing, and he cannot fail to look upon what Christ would have him see and share Christ's love for what he looks upon. So if we take off the judgment and we go strictly to that discernment, we now can see it neutral. And now our perception will show us a world of those who are choosing to follow the ego mind, the thought system of fear. And now we can have compassion on them. The first step for us to begin to understand the love of God, the true love of God, we only know ego love when we operate in the 3D world, which is all conditional. It's all a barter system. We call it true love, but it's really a barter system. When we go to the unconditional love, that is the love of God, the first step is going to be in acceptance. Everybody is where they are. That begins to move us into neutral. Instead of judging it good or bad, to the word that Vern just used, it moves us into a discernment that says that frequency feels like they're uncomfortable. They're scared. You can feel their tightness. You can feel their worry. From a place of that neutral discernment, you now can perceive, because you will decide to look for the Christ in them. God, or brother, what can I do for you? Sister, how can I help you? I notice that you are really upset. How can I be of service to you? Not to fix them, because when you begin to acknowledge everybody is a soul having the experience that they want in the playground, in the haunted house, we're not trying to tell them that their choice is wrong. We're simply saying, you don't seem to be very comfortable with your choice. How can I be of service? And that's when dialogues open up for people who say, how can you be so comfortable in the middle of this chaos? So we have to understand that we see things as we want them to be. Do you want to see powerful beings having a disempowering experience? Then you really truly be of service. But if you're seeing people who need to be fixed, guess where you are? You're right there in that lower consciousness, projecting something needs to be fixed, because you don't own your own wholeness. So everything that we put out comes from the consciousness that is experiencing it. You clear your consciousness from the egoic distortions that oh, I'm here to save the world, which obviously I've had my fair share of thinking I was disseminating the information was going to change people's lives and they needed to listen to me. It's just part of the process. We all have to get really comfortable with what we teach and think that is, the only way, before we realize, okay, that there is more. but you have to ground yourself in a level of pride about what you're doing so that you own it. And then you have the courage to say, oh, wait, there's more. So that is something that does happen. But it is important that we truly understand that what we perceive comes from where we are inside. The next lesson, which is 313, this one is so crucial for those who are obviously understanding what judgment and perception are, is important. But the next two lessons are going to help us understand how to save the world by how we create a new future. Not to save them because they're doing the wrong thing, but because in the Course in Miracles, salvation means stop thinking things that make you suffer. That's all salvation is. Stop believing things that hurt you. So that's what salvation is. It's a transformation of our mind. So this lesson 313, now let a new perception come to me. So if perception creates my reality, let me perceive in a new way. Let us today behold each other in the sight of Christ. How beautiful we are. Just take a second and look at these beautiful beings right here in the Hollywood squares, the Zoom squares, whether it's a picture or live. Look how beautiful the light emanated by these amazing brothers and sisters that are here present, all desiring to free ourselves so that we can be more of what we naturally are, beacons of light. How beautiful we are, how holy and how loving. Brother, sister, come and join with me today. We save the world when we have joined, for in our vision, it becomes as holy as the light in us. When we join our vision for the world that we want to see, when we begin to see the world with the exact same perception, powerful beings who chose to have the experience that they're having, it's not good, it's not bad, it is a choice to experience blocking the light or shining the light. It's a choice. Now we can stand to call each other forward into the truth of who we are. So instead of talking about this terrible person, let me just use the easy one right now. Dr. Fauci, what an evil person, all these terrible things he's doing. Instead of spending our time judging him, how about if in your own mind, and if you have the opportunity in person, if you talk to him or send him a letter, and at least in our own mind, we say, wow, holy brother, you sure have picked an interesting role. You know, you have participated in a role that has activated the opportunity for a lot of people to experience suffering. Notice I said activated. I'm not saying, Fauci, you are making people suffer. I'm saying you've created an opportunity for people to experience suffering. I see the good in you. I see the light in you. I know you could shift what you're doing if you were reminded of the love and the light that is in you. In my consciousness, when I'm watching these people and people are bashing them, like everybody else, I have had my moments of judgment, and from time to time they do happen, but I quickly forgive myself for participating in righteousness and moving myself into the recognition that he's playing the role that for right now is giving the opportunity for a lot of souls to choose to shift, to choose to ascend, to choose to seek for their sovereignty as much as they can seek to choose for or continue to choose for their disempowerment. So he is playing a role, but I know that there is a light in him, and I just call it forward as much as I possibly can. Why? Let us today behold each other in the sight of Christ. How can I see Fauci and not go, oh, how beautiful you are, how holy and how loving you can be? Within you is the essence of the love of the Christ. It is there. And when we begin to call that forward, we are literally activating an opening, a portal, a potential, a possibility for a shift in consciousness. Because as we push against, that strengthens that idea that they have control. You're trying to control people. Yes, I am. But if you say, Well, you're not controlling me because I see how holy and how beautiful you are. That makes that mind wonder, wait a second, they're not afraid of me? No, I'm not afraid of you, brother. You're just like me. We're both souls having a human experience. You have no more power than I do. You're just using the power of your mind to choose to think that you're a pure little, this little man that needs to control other people and make them suffer for you to feel bigger than what you are. But I see the ginormous essence of who you are, a child of God, one with God, the Christ itself. You're that. If you begin to remember that, then you stop taking power from others. You stop sucking the life force from others and becoming evil because you don't know who you really are. You clearly cannot know who you are if you are attempting to take what God has placed in you and in others, take it from them. Clearly, you don't remember the goodness that is in you. We are being called. This is why Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. Jesus was not attempting to tell anybody that they were doing anything wrong when he was being crucified, because he knew they were playing the role that was necessary for him to have the experience of the resurrection. Now, up until that moment, Jesus was a very determined, very deliberate teacher of truth, and was not afraid to speak to the truth, was not afraid to stand up to authority, was not afraid to say, this is not okay, even turning tables over. Not because he was judging it right or wrong, but because he was like, you people who say you love God, and this is what you're doing, when are you going to get it? At some point, we do get exhausted of saying the same thing to those that we teach over and over and over and over again. I won't mention any names. Some of you that have coached for many years, you know who you are. We repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again, because on this planet, through repetition we descend, through repetition we ascend. And sometimes the repetition has to come a little bit more forceful. And the time for a little bit more forceful, and not to go out there and beat anybody over the head, but if it requires to stand up and show that you are not afraid, and maybe you have to hold a gun, maybe that is where it goes. Maybe you've got your finger on the button that is going to send something off. If you happen to be the person who has that finger near the button that says, hey, we need to look at things differently, and we need to not be afraid. Well, we need to let go of fear, number one. We have got to be clear that we are all of us deserve life, liberty, and happiness. And if we are not experiencing that, it is okay to stand for that. It is not okay to force that upon others, because right now, the ignorance on this planet is vast. And these brothers and sisters, especially the children, need to have a voice of reason. And the voice of reason, and look where reason is. We've seen reason up here on the board many times. Reason is way up there, way up there. The voice of reason is a voice that says the children of God were not created to suffer. Suffering is something that we do when we are disconnected from truth. And these children, these are souls who choose to have this human experience, but in the human experience, they are not consciously choosing to suffer. So we have to honor that soul by seeing as powerful. And from that place of power, saying, hey, there is another way. There is a way of love. There's a way of gentleness. There is a way of upliftment. So we've got to get our mind clear, stop judging those who are doing the things that we no longer are vibing with, and begin to stand up for what we vibe for. And those who want to follow will follow. And that means that in some cases that we have to take some pretty strong stands. Let me read the last lesson for today, lesson 314. This lesson title is, I seek a future different from the past. So we went from, I judge all things as I would have them be. The mind divides everything into good and bad. The next lesson was, I see all things as I would have them be, because perception follows judgment. So I judge it, and then I see it how I want to see it. Then we went to the next lesson. Let's perceive it differently now. Now let a new perception come to me. Now we seek a future different than the past. From new perception of the world, there comes a future very different from the past. The future now is recognized as but extension of the present. So we're looking at the past and saying we no longer want to participate in a world that has been repeating the same thing, expecting a different result. When we are living from our ego, the ego is like a Xerox machine. It only knows the past and it repeats it. That's why humanity continues to do the same thing over and over and over again, and we don't get a different result. What do we do over and over again? The 1% rules, the 99% get oppressed, and then of course there's extinction because the 1% begin to fight amongst themselves and everybody dies. We do that cycle over and over and over again. Well, now there's enough of us on the planet that are saying we don't want to play the game by those old rules. So for that game to end, some of us are going to have to stand up. And there are many, 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 many vocal people. And if you want to know who the vocal ones are that are speaking truth, they're the ones who are being censored right now. That's where you need to go. Who's being censored? They're speaking truth, because those who are censoring are operating in the old fear-based energy of control. And anybody who is teaching others to look at things differently, to pull out of the old ways, are the ones who are being censored. Just as Jesus was being censored, why do you think he was crucified? To give us the ultimate example of censorship, to scare us. But yet Jesus wanted to use that lesson for liberation. So now, I don't know if you've heard about the 12 people who were censored. I put it on my Facebook page. I can't remember exactly what they were being called, but these amazing teachers, these are amazing scientists and doctors who are speaking for the truth against the vaccines. They now have been deplatformed. They've been censored. They're being basically, they want the whole world to think that they're quacks. Well, they did that with Galileo and they did that with Jesus. Why? Because truth has to be censored by those who are afraid of it. And if you can understand that we're repeating patterns and begin to look at censorship as this not something new, happened during the Holocaust. How many times do we need to go through the same thing before we do something about it? So from new perception of the world, there comes a future very different from the past. We have to begin to perceive the world anew. This is what the Course in Miracles wants us to understand. If we decide that this is the world that we want and we begin to live in it, in a world of kindness, of talking to the other as powerful, respectfully, speaking from love, asking for what we want from love. Honey, I want to do this with you. Corporation, boss, I want to implement this because this is good, as opposed to, I hate what you're doing. I don't like what you're doing. I'm afraid of what you're doing. If we operate from this level, you're not where you think you are in consciousness. This is where the honesty has to come in. Operating from fear, your body is going to be contracting. Notice where you go into fear. Get comfortable with assessing what's happening in the body, because when the mind gets hijacked by the ego, you can still feel the body even if you have insane thoughts. And many who understand that the body doesn't lie move to that place where they recognize, oh, I just tightened up. And then you can say, oh, let me change my mind about this. But in the middle of the mind being hijacked, if you don't have something else to go to, you'll just stay inside of your mental insanity for however long it takes you before you get out of it. But it is so crucial that you recognize that the future now is recognized as but extension of the present. If you want the future, the new earth to arise, to be something that we head toward, we have to create it now by being the change we want to see in the world. And we've heard that so many times. Past mistakes can cast no shadows on it. Don't spend time fearing the past, studying the past, trying to figure out the past. Once you know enough about the past, you know you don't want to repeat it. God knows I've got lots of information in my mind. I can go to my mental filing cabinet and I can tell you so many things that I know are repetitive processes. So I've got it in my mind, but I don't spend time there because now I recognize it when I see it very quickly. But I do spend time, deliberate time, thinking about the new earth that I want to be a part of, because that is what is exciting to me, is knowing that I am the bringer of the new earth. I am the way, just as each of you are the way. Because when we band together in talking about what we want, we are going to shift the planet. We are going to connect. We're going to send out signals, and as beacons, we're going to find each other, and we're going to be creating the new earth, because the world is dividing. If you're not noticing it yet, you will very soon. The world is being divided, and right now, the racism that we have is medical racism. Now it's about, who's vaxxed and who's not, which is insane that we have gotten to that, but the ego mind is insane. Then it goes on to say, past mistakes can cast no shadows on it, so that fear has lost its idols and its images, and being formless, it has no effect. When you're not afraid of others, when you're no longer afraid of Biden or afraid of Fauci or afraid of Gates or afraid of, your mom or your dad or whoever you feel was the source of all your childhood pain, when you're no longer afraid of them, the formless thought of fear that makes you think that you're powerless will have no power over you. You'll be able to feel the thought that makes you go, into contraction, and you will forgive yourself. Oh, there's that same thought again. I choose not to judge Fauci for what he's not being. I choose, or for what he's being, controlling or lying or whatever. I choose to see him for what he is, that he's not recognizing, which is a powerful child of God, beautiful and holy, just like me. So death will not claim the future now, for life is now its goal. And all the needed means are happily provided. Who can grieve or suffer when the present has been freed, extending its security and peace into a quiet future filled with joy? How do we create the future that we're seeking? We've got to remember that we're powerful creators. Let's start using our power to create what we want. Let's start standing in alignment, in communication, and speaking for what it is that we have found. I have found that I am under no laws but God's. I know where my well-being comes from. I know where my strength resides. And if for some reason I'm supposed to get something that the world is so afraid of, I will deal with that with grace in the moment that is an experience that I will be having, if that happens to be what I'm going to have. For now, my mind is very clear that with God, everything is possible. And I rest inside of that. I'd rather be happy than be right. I rest in the knowingness that the love that I feel is about setting all beings free, because inside of that freedom, everybody gets to expand, because they bring forth what is within them when they feel free. When people don't feel free, they pull back in contraction. So what we want to do is be the ones who allow everybody to be free. That's what you want, no problem. That is one of the things that scares the controllers more than anything. Those of us who do not resist them, who do not attempt to change the mind of those who think differently, but rather go, good for you. You want to take the vaccine? Good for you. Good for you. But I want you to extend the same to me. If you want to take that, good for you. But I want you to stand up for the same freedom for me. I respect not going to your facilities if you want to just have those specific rules. But I want you to respect that if I'm hanging out with my group in my facility and we want to do it differently, that it's okay too. And this country is getting divided by the states that allow something and the states that don't. Little by little, humanity is going to be migrating to places where you feel like there is a frequency that allows you to be how you want to be, or to a frequency that controls and allows you to feel the kind of safety that you feel that you need, because fear runs your life. But when love and truth runs our lives, we recognize that it doesn't need to be judged, but rather just be seen. And from that place of respect that we're all children of God, having the whatever reality we want to have, we have permission. Not only permission, we have the duty to listen to the voice inside of us that wants to use us in whatever way it wants to use us, which is why at some point, the real awakening part is when we surrender our lives and allow the infinite source to guide us, make us an instrument of its will. And some of us will be guided to positions of power, to run for office, to take up arms, to stand in front of a place and barricade. I don't know what people are going to be called for, but if you're called to do that with peace in your heart, do it. And there are a lot of people right now. I follow a lot of people on many different platforms who, with peace in their heart, are disseminating some pretty harsh information. But they're doing it because they know that we need to be aware of what's happening inside of this game. It is absolutely crucial that we have our eyes wide open to what is happening, because we're participating in how this game is being played. We're all pawns in this game. And our roles are important. To do it with consciousness, though, is to really do it with peace in our heart. And when you are clear about what you are, you won't have fear, and you'll be more effective. So let me stop there. Thoughts, comments, please. I hope that this empowers you and it diminishes fear. It is intended to give you options, to look at things differently, to try it, in safe places, in your own home, talking to people without judgment, in your own community, standing for what you believe and respecting others when they might believe differently. Check in places, again, that you feel safe, to push the boundaries of where the ego might want to suppress you, but you want to be expressed, because if you don't bring forth what is within you, it will suffocate you. And many of us are being called to step away from families or communities or jobs or political parties or whatever it might be. Many of us are being asked, if not all of us, are being asked to really question things. As they get wackier, we're going to be faced with even more reason to really question what's going on. Yes, Laina. And then we'll go to Kat.
Oh, okay. It's interesting, as it seems like as we continue on this path of awakening, that the force, the energy and the force within is like coming out. It's like your throat chakra is opening, and you gotta speak, because I can't contain it. It's got to come out. So that's interesting. Is that part of this? Us just moving more energy through us, or what's your thoughts of that as far as how it feels as you continue to awaken?
Yes, because when we are little, that's exactly what's happening. When we were little, we were conditioned to suppress our voices. Daddy knows best, mommy knows best. Children are to be seen and not heard. Stay quiet till I say you have permission to speak. In class, we're conditioned for 12 years. You do not speak until you raise your hand. So we suppress the energy that wants to be expressed. So we have suppressed it. The more that we are shifting our consciousness, and we're not shifting our consciousness only by choosing to think differently. This planet is part of a universe that is very operating in an intelligence. Planets are ascending in consciousness. They're shifting, just as humans are shifting in consciousness. Planets are shifting, Galaxies are shifting. So we are being bathed right now with energies that are facilitating it's almost the best analogy that I can give you. Everybody here is familiar with the laser treatments that are given to people who have kidney stones. Okay, so they don't have to go in there to take them out. They send frequency. That frequency doesn't it's not a thing. It's frequency. It breaks up the stone. So just as the stone in the body is breaking down with the frequency, we're receiving light from our sun, from other places in the galaxy. The big solar flares that are coming are part of cyclical shifts in frequency. Our minds are filled with, stupid stones, ego stones. They have to be broken down. So we are receiving the kind of radiation, if you will, that may not be the right word, that is breaking down the density, the calcification of our pineal gland, the calcification of the knowingness within us. That is breaking down, and it is allowing us to feel more alive. As a matter of fact, there are some, maybe it's beyond studies, they may be doing it now, but I cannot tell you where I read this, but some of you may have heard this. The whole thing with Alzheimer's is really a calcification process that has happened that keeps them from accessing memories. You know what I'm talking about, Vern. So maybe you might be able to speak to this a little more than I can. But they're using sound waves, I believe it is, to break down the calcification. And the Alzheimer's is, sorry to say this, but it is planned. It is planned to cause people to forget who they are. And through the chemicals that we are being bombarded with, through so many different things that we thought was good for us, it's really a causing of losing our minds. And to lose our minds, for those who are attempting to control, is nothing more than to sever our connection with God. Because if we can maintain our connection with God, if we remember who we are, if our pineal gland is active, if we are in alignment with that energy that is moving through us, we are not controllable. Not at all. Not at all. But we have been broken down like little horses get broken down, put the pony and break it down. But there is energy that needs to move. Why? Because the energy is not out there coming just into us. It's a system. We have to give it, and other energies come to us, but we are energy sources. If you haven't seen the movie The Matrix, I highly recommend that you watch it. Specifically, there's a scene where the bad guys have blocked the sun. They don't want humanity to get energy from the sun. Because if we have energy from the sun, we are energized. Why do you think they don't want us out in the sun right now? Stay home and, isolate. The sun is energy coming directly to us to energize us. Well, in the Matrix, there is it was just a jarring scene for me when I saw it, and I realized, oh my God, that's exactly what happens in this world. The bad guys have blocked the sun. Well, they need the energy. Where do you think they get the energy? They turn the humans into batteries. They suck the energy from the humans. They're all placed in pods, and the energy is being sucked out of us. Our life force gets sucked out of us. And that's no different when your mind is no longer your own. Literally, you're emanating energy that is being taken, but not from we don't even know that we're energy beings. One of the things that they don't want us to hear. So Natalia, you've never heard of Alzheimer's in Russia. I never heard of Alzheimer's in the Dominican Republic either. Kat, you were going to share something. No? Oh, okay. Anybody else? So share a nugget that you got from this conversation. Yes, Krista.
Quite a few nuggets actually, but I was recall that a few years ago that can't remember who it was, but someone reminded me that the choice to have a physical body as a spiritual being is like a choice that we have to buy a motor vehicle, and then we get behind the steering wheel and we drive it in the traffic of life. And that's what we're doing with a physical body. The only thing, the steering wheel of our body has multitudinous levels of input from our mind, our emotions, and the physical sensing from our physical environment. And from that, our spiritual being makes choices of how to drive, how to steer our physical body. And I'm learning to become more and more experienced to discern the best way that I can optimize my physical experience. And the recognition is that the more I'm connected to my inner guidance, the better expression my physical vehicle can have, the greater sensing, the greater everything. It's not that the physical body won't survive the other lower vibrations that you mentioned on the chart there, it just won't survive as efficiently and maybe not as long, or maybe I'll have longevity, but I'll have very low quality. So there's a variety of learning to become conscious with my vehicle that I'm driving, and and to become more and more conscious of my spiritual direction while I'm doing it, and to become awake of my spiritual greatness while I'm doing it. So that's sort of just a reminder of how to drive my vehicle with more and more discernment, as Vern mentioned there.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to share any nuggets? And I've had some people asking me if I would create a group so that we can connect and talk and share things. So I'm going to create a group in Telegram, just because I little by little want to wean myself from Facebook. I just don't feel energetically in alignment and connection with that, unless they do something drastic to shift all the censoring. And it's really for me important to be in a space that I feel more comfortable, because when Facebook censors something and calls it, fact checked, and I know it's pure BS, I just don't want to keep supporting an organization that is making so much money off of my content and me. So anyways, in Telegram, I'm going to create a group, and I'm going to call it Ascending with A Course in Miracles. And what I would like to put in there is, obviously I'll post these classes in there, the links, but only post what is supporting the creation of a new earth. What are the things that are helping? What is the good that is happening? Because the conversation about what's wrong, that's a different conversation. It's not the same as Ascension. Ascension requires that we not judge. So we don't need to be focusing on the bad things. But if it's something that is shifting, if it's something that has changed, a politician who changes their mind, and a law that gets passed that allows for the upholding, like several states, for example, that governor in Florida who said, Governor DeSantis, I believe that's his name, we are not enforcing vaccine passports. That's the creation of a new earth, is sovereignty, is standing up for a platform that allows for each individual to make their own decisions, which is what this country was based on, founded on, that level of freedom. So I would like for it to be a platform where we educate each other on the good that is happening, who is supporting those things, and also maybe movies that have helped us, or songs that have helped us, or books that are helping us. In class last night, I shared as the assignment for the class, and recommend this for everybody here. If you haven't already watched the movie, The Truman Show, I highly recommend that you watch that movie. because we're all Truman. We are all in this world since we're born, disconnected from, by choice, we disconnect our consciousness from source so we can have this human experience. Otherwise, if we had that consciousness, we would come out of the womb and go, no, you people are crazy here. I'm not staying here. This feels too dense. So to have the human experience, we basically get indoctrinated into the communities that we're born into, just as Truman gets conditioned into believing that what is fake is real and what is real is fake. And that movie will, hopefully with this consciousness, will absolutely give you something to think about. And the ending is very poignant. And we are entering the storm that Truman has to go through before he can get to the other side. And we're about to enter that storm. And Truman wouldn't suffer through the storm if he knew the truth of who he was. He discovers the truth because he gets through the storm. And you can interpret the ending in one of two ways. He wakes up while he's alive, or maybe he ends up, leaving the earth and going to heaven and realizing what was going on. But the main thing about that movie is, to me, it's a parallel with that we're all living lives that are not what we thought they were. We are way more powerful, and we have been used, but we've been participating in being used. That's why you can't judge a good or bad, because we chose to come to this planet. But we have the free will to choose not to continue to play the game the way we've been playing it. It's our prerogative with our free will to shift the game. And thank you for playing the game differently with me, because I want to play in a higher vibe, in a vibe that works for everybody, supports everybody, and uplifts everybody, and honors everybody's divinity. Yes, including Fauci's.
I like to just say thank you, Laina, for creating a group where we can focus on what's good, what's right. That's really helpful right now.
Oh, there is so much that is good. Really, truly, there's a lot of warriors out there that if we could just read what they are saying, oh my God, it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, because like when you use the watermelon analogy, like, I don't like watermelon. It's like I see all these people screaming, this is bad for you. It's a little more of a practice,
Yeah.
choosing today in the 3D world. So anything I can do to strengthen that what's good in the world muscle
Absolutely.
is powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, share it with somebody who gets that, so that we can all operate at that same frequency. Very cool. Yes, Vern. Unmute yourselves, everybody.
Yeah, I would encourage you to do what you're saying. I think that's I've got a Facebook account, but I never use it. I've intentionally stayed away from it. I'm so glad I did, because I could be, I think I said this on another Zoom call, I'd be in deep doo-doo based on how I think and what I might be saying. I don't know what they do to me. They do more than just, they do something to me, I'm sure. One area is that that I'm looking at as well, is that if you took the 10 worst things that people are saying, okay, and then spend some time with each one of those and say, okay, now what's the alternative to that? You'd get a lot from that as well. And I think because if we only focus on the positive, okay, and I understand that, but if we had a chance as part of that to say, okay, these are the 5 things that are happening right now that are appearing to be very negative, that are very challenging to us, and look at each one of those, because just as the lessons you did today, one of them was about it towards the end. I think it was you have a perception to start with, but then you have to look at it again. And I think of the metaphor of turning the other cheek. I think some people don't really understand what that was, or possibly was, because the idea when you slap somebody's face, okay, they turn the other cheek, but they also have a different viewpoint of what's going on. And sometimes you have to have a whack alongside the head, okay, in order for you to get the message of what's happening, but then you get a chance to see it from a different viewpoint. So I don't think it's just about, and I'm not saying that we're talking about doing that, but not just avoiding what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
you have to have some place. And this is where the challenges I was having in the group I was part of. When you have that pent up energy around these things, you've got to have some place to release that, some safe space that you can say, well, here's what I'm feeling right now because of this is what's going on. Now that could sound like a bitch session, and I'm not saying that's what we're talking about, but we're human beings, and we have to have a place sometimes to just let that out. Now, once we get it out, then they have different people look at that and share insights around that challenge.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's very powerful as far as I'm concerned. So
totally. This is not about just putting fluffy, happy things. It is about the good that is happening. And sometimes the good is going to be a reversal of something that was going in opposite direction. And yes, when we come together to talk about what it is that we want, oftentimes we have to speak to what it is that we're leaving behind and what it is that is not working and has to be corrected. But yes, it's a conversation exactly as you said, where there is a willingness to hear other perspectives. Because even though we might think, one of us might think that we know the best way to go in one direction, we may not be seeing our own blind spots about potential pitfalls in that one, although it might sound like a good way. Absolutely. I want this to be, you know what, to me, it's having the word that you used earlier, and you refer to this, Vern, we have intelligence that we need to use. And the system that we have been operating under has been suppressing our intelligence, has been filling our minds with so much fluff. We don't even know how to ask questions, how to say, why do you think that? We're so afraid to ask, tell me, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Because the mind is so conditioned to need to be right that hearing a different perspective, the ego mind goes into, oh my God, I was wrong. I don't want to be wrong. So I'm going to have to shut you down. Absolutely. Are you in Telegram, Vern?
no, I'm not. I haven't even heard of it. So I'll look it up when we get off.
Yeah.
I'll take a look and see what's going on. Yeah.
It's or Signal. I mean, I'm open to opening it on Signal, either one, but I know a lot of you guys are in Telegram.
I've got to step away. I've got Federal Express is at my door.
Go for it. Thank you. I'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks. Yes, Kat.
Well, I don't know if this is true, but it was on Fox, I think yesterday, that Bill Gates has purchased Telegram. Again, I went and Googled it because I had heard it. I wanted to see if it was true or not. They're saying that he's purchased the Telegram app in order to retain control of what information people can share, think, and research. So you might want to just be sure. And this, who knows if it's true, but it's out there, and it was on Fox. So.
Okay, well, you know, that just lets you know that they are working really, really diligently at being able to access. So Trump supposedly is going to open up a platform that is going to stay totally, completely free of censorship. So we'll start somewhere, and then we can always migrate later on. Once we can gather in one place, from there we can move.
Yeah.
So we'll start in Telegram. Yeah, we might just start there for now.
We're the Course of Miracle Gypsies.
Love it. Maybe we'll call it that. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here today. I so appreciate you.
Thank you, Laina. Appreciate you so much too.
Love you, Laina.
Thank you. Thank you, beloved.
Everybody. Yes.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Bye.